Right, thank you. Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to you. My name is Nkumbe Ekaney. I have today on a panel of 4 people. One of them is a barrister who practices from my chambers. I say my chambers because we're both in the same chambers, and the practice is 1 GC family law in London. It's a set of chambers of over 100 barristers, 15 of whom are KCs or King's Counsel, and they are generally recognized by their peers and the profession as being excellent and appointed by the sovereign as one of their counsel. One of those counsel is speaking to you now. I specialize in family law, and my chambers specializes exclusively in family law. So we are covering areas of children law, divorce, public law, and all associated matters to do with children. I'm proud to say that we are one of the top 5 sets of chambers in London. Now, there's a distinction between chambers and firms. Firms usually are populated by solicitors who are partners, and therefore they're called firms. And chambers are generally barristers who practice independently. So they work for themselves, and therefore they're not firms, but are chambers. What we want to do is to give you some instinct or some feeling of the sort of work that we undertake, Sapna and I. I mostly undertake public law work, which is state intervention in family life. So it will be typically children who have been killed, children who have been seriously hurt, or children who have suffered some sort of injury or damage in their homes. So I would typically be representing local authorities, parents, or indeed the children themselves. There are all aspects of my practice would include a lot of medical law and sometimes a lot of criminal law. But for the most part, it is focusing on the welfare and safeguarding of children. One of the points which is very close to my heart is this phrase: privilege is not recognized by those who enjoy it. And by that I mean that all of us who practice in the law are extremely privileged to be dealing with the private lives of most people, to be dealing with the vulnerabilities of people, and to be dealing with things which are closest to people's hearts. And it's a very privileged position to be in. And one of the things that is close to my heart as well is the fact that in my profession, a lot of underrepresented people do not have access. So what do I mean by that? I mean that you don't see a lot of people like you and me doing the job that Sapna and I are doing. And that is one of the areas which causes me extreme concern. I'm pleased to tell you that for 4 years of my career, I was head of chambers of 1 GC. And one of the things that we were particularly proud of was that 66% of members of chambers of 1 GC are women. We are not particularly blessed with a high number of people of color, but that is something that we are tackling and dealing with. And it is important that people who want to go to the law see people like all of people on the panel doing the job and representing families, children, and so on. So how did I come to do the law? Well, I studied law at Bristol University. I had a pupillage in chambers in Bristol. I practiced in Bristol in family law for about 15 to 20 years. I then took silk or became a KC or Queen's Counsel at the time in 2011. And in 2016, I was recruited to move to be a member of 1 GC, where I've been till now. Apart from doing my job as King's Counsel, I sat as a Deputy High Court Judge between 2017 and 2023. So I have a bit of experience when it comes to these matters. And without any further ado, I will pass the baton now to Sapna, who is a member of my chambers. She's been a member of my chambers for a few years now. And I'm pleased to say she was recruited as a member of my chambers when I was head of chambers. So Sapna, thank you.
Thank you very much, Nkumbe, for that warm welcome. Hello, everyone. As Nkumbe says, I am a barrister, also at 1GC Family Law. I specialise exclusively in family law, which means I work on children law, so matters just as Nkumbe has mentioned, but also I work on family finances, which means when people are in a couple and they separate and there is an argument as to how their financial assets should separate, that's where I step in and I help them work out where the assets should go. I also work in other areas of family law, which include Family Law Act injunctions, which is when someone needs protection in an enforcement order against someone that they are involved with, or a family member or an ex-partner. So that's broadly speaking the kind of area that I work in. I qualified 2.5 years ago, so I'm relatively junior. And I started as a law student a couple of years ago. I did my undergrad in law, and I then went on to do my master's in law. I didn't actually specialise in family law. I specialised in data protection. I did a dissertation in artificial intelligence. That was where my interest lay. But then when I worked for a year as a paralegal in the data protection field, I found that my passion was helping people, and that didn't really equate to what I was doing in data protection. So I then did some work experience where I volunteered pro bono, that means for free, for anyone who had issues with family law under the supervision of an expert barrister or an expert solicitor. I found that that's where I really enjoyed working. I found that that was where my skills really seemed to be utilised effectively. And I then decided to apply for work in family law. That's when I applied for 1GC. I thankfully got a pupillage there and I started work there in 2023 September. That's where I've been ever since. Just a quick introduction as to what pupillage is, because you might have heard that word bouncing around this evening. Pupillage is essentially almost like a paid internship. It's a 1-year intensive course where the first half is spent by you shadowing an experienced barrister around court in their daily lives, different barristers at that particular set of chambers, and you get a feel of what it is a barrister needs to do in their day-to-day life. The second half of your pupillage is you doing your own cases. So those are cases which you're instructed on directly by clients, by solicitors. And then once you qualify, once you finish that year, you are then either taken on at that same chambers, which means you're offered a position there, or you apply elsewhere if you're unsuccessful in your pupillage. I was, as I say, thankfully successful in my pupillage, so I stayed on at 1GC, and it's where I've been ever since. I've been asked to speak a little bit about the highlights and challenges in my day-to-day role. I'd say one of the highlights is helping people. It's a privilege, I would say, to help someone who has an issue in family law. I work with people who are normally at quite a low point in their lives. They are someone who needs help, but they find it very difficult to access the courts of law on their own. So they need the assistance of someone who is qualified. I find it a privilege to be able to help someone in that situation. I find that my clients are always a little bit better off after receiving representation, because what might have been a difficult experience is not one that they have to do alone. I also find that one of the highlights of my roles is that every day is different. I work with a variety of different clients. I normally am in court about 4 days a week, so I have quite a busy practice. But every day is different in that either I'm at a different court in England and Wales, or I am representing a different client, or I am before a different judge, or I'm working opposite different opponents. And I really like that variety of my role. One of the challenges I would say is it's very hard work. I am self-employed, which means I don't have fixed hours. I often work on weekends. I often work in the evenings. I often have to have very early starts, but I really enjoy it because it means that I make my own hours, which means that if I have a case that I'm working on, say on Wednesday, I can choose to start working on Tuesday evening, I can choose to start working on Tuesday morning, and then take the afternoon off and do something else. So I like the flexibility that that role provides, even though it is hard work, and even though the hours can be quite tough. In terms of my advice that I would give to all of you, I'd split it probably into three. The first is, if you are interested in the legal profession, I think it's really important that you gain some work experience. What I mean by that is either shadowing a barrister like me or a solicitor like Alex, who will speak to you soon, or speaking with one of us via a chat platform, so you understand a little bit more about what the experience is like, what the day-to-day role of our lives is like. But also, I suppose, just trying to find out any way in which you can virtually shadow someone. So if you're not able to shadow them physically, then some chambers offer experiences whereby you're able to log into a remote hearing and shadow that barrister, or perhaps some solicitors firms might offer that equivalent experience. And I think it's really invaluable to be able to speak to someone who does the role that we do, shadow them, so you can see whether or not this is a particular lifestyle that suits you. The second piece of advice that I would give is, if you are interested specifically in becoming a barrister, it's very important that you enjoy public speaking, or at least you hone your skill in public speaking. Either that can be through debating, or that can be through mooting, which is mock advocacy, or it can be through drama, enrolling in theatre plays, anything of those sorts, because advocacy is a big part of our role, speaking to judges and speaking to clients. So it's important, if you want to be a barrister, that you are able to develop your skills of public speaking. It's always difficult at first, but I find it easier the more I do it. The last piece of advice that I would give you if you're interested in becoming a barrister is to be resilient and persevere. It's a hard role to get into. Pupillage, for example, the applications for pupillage are competitive, it's tough, but it's worth it. And I would strongly advise anyone who's interested in entering the field of becoming a barrister to really stick at it if you do want to try. It's not something which some people are successful in the first round of applying. Sometimes it takes a couple of rounds of applying. But a lot of us out there who are barristers are very willing and happy to help. So if you do find that you want to go into this profession, then enroll in work experience, enroll in public speaking, and persevere. Those are my three pieces of advice. Thank you, Nkumbe.
I'm going to now ask Alex, please, just to give us an overview as well, just a bit like Sapna has done, and then we can start thinking about questions. Thank you very much. Alex. I think you're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Thank you, Mr. Nkumbe, and I also want to start by thanking the organizers of this platform, because it's very important. When I came to the UK, I was qualified as I studied public law in the then Yaoundé University we call Ngwakele in Cameroon. So I came here, it was tough, and I took the second step before the first step. I started by doing a master in LLM because I was looking for somebody who could assist me. But today we have such a program, and by then there was no maybe internet that you could search for things. So I want to thank the people who organized this platform. And I will start by saying, to me, it's been a daunting process in life to become a solicitor, mostly as somebody who comes from Africa. It's not all that easy. And things have changed today, because I would like to focus on to become a solicitor in this country. Now, things have changed. Traditionally, from what I study, we have four main areas of qualifying in order to become a solicitor today. And the main route today, we call it, is solicitor qualifying exams, which is different from what I did. And you have solicitor apprenticeship route. Then you have the LPC route, that's what I do, the traditional one. And we have qualified lawyers, that if you're an international lawyer and you want to practice law in the United Kingdom, I must say there's nothing like a UK lawyer, because we have different jurisdiction in the United Kingdom. It is split between England and Wales. Then you have Scotland and Northern Ireland. They have different rules. So as a solicitor today, you can go through the solicitor qualifying route, which requires you to have a degree or non-degree. That's a good thing, because today you can qualify without having a law degree. So you have to pass this exam, which is solicitor qualifying exam, you have, we call it SQE1 and SQE2. SQE1 is about legal knowledge and SQE2 is about practical experience. You need a 2 years qualifying experience. The good thing today is that you don't need to do it in a particular law firm, as you have to look for a training contract, and it was very, very competitive and difficult. So, but today you can do it as a paralegal, law clinic, or work experience somewhere. So it's different today with the solicitor qualifying exam. So you have what we call apprenticeship. If you want to be a solicitor, is what we call it NY you learn. So in the UK, most people, they always end up students with a lot of debt. If you want to make sure you don't have a lot of debt, I will advise you that the solicitor apprenticeship route is very, very beautiful. Especially, you can just finish as an A-level student and you look for an apprenticeship. But you have to do the solicitor qualifying exam, which is legal knowledge, and you have between 2 to 6 years, you have to do it within that period. Then you have the traditional route, that's what I did, which is usually you have a law degree, LLB, or you have do a conversion course, which is a graduate diploma in law. Then you have a 2 years training contract. And after that, you have to have suitability and character check, which is about they'll check your criminal record, academic misconduct, financial conduct. So, because in order to be a solicitor in the United Kingdom, you must be a very honest person. So they have to check all this to make sure that you're fit to be a lawyer. I'll tell you that you can murder somebody and they will allow you to be a lawyer. But if you're dishonest, they will not allow you, because murder doesn't always involve dishonesty. So it's very important that you're an honest person, that you can deal with people's financial. We have what we call also solicitor professional conduct. We are being regulated by a body called SRA, which they regulate us. We have to make sure that we follow the rules and regulation in the solicitor professional conduct. The fourth group, the last but not the least, you have international lawyer scheme. If you are a foreign lawyer, you come to the UK, you have to do this solicitor qualifying examination 1 and 2. But however, you can ask for exemption, especially if you're in a common law country, and you can apply for exemption. Then they will have to look at your language proficiency. So the things have changed. As I say, I've been practicing in a high street firm. High street firm, usually, when I was still a law student, we used to do what we call free representative unit. They were encouraging us to have experience, and we can go and represent people in employment tribunal. I practiced 90% where I train as a solicitor. Most of our work was criminal law, and I was privileged to have an employee barrister where I was working. So we used to cross all the courts in London or Belmarsh Ward, and I was there before I used to write notes when they have, we have cases. We used to go to criminal cases. By then, they will need somebody to be writing notes or whatever. Before I became a solicitor, I was working with a solicitor too. That's the difficulty, to have a training contract. Sometimes they will promise you can work for a solicitor for free for 2 years, then they will not give you the contract. Things have changed today with the apprenticeship rules, because you can train with different law firms, paralegal, work experience, and it's different today. It's more easier, because the route that I went through was more difficult, especially being a man, and a man from Africa. It was very, very difficult. So, and as I say, I won't say much, because if you have any question on what we're talking about, you want the experience with the route that is more easier for you, I can explain it further to you, because it's very easy. And I'm very happy, because when I left Cameroon, I came to the UK. My friends in CPC Bali, they used to ask me, what do you want to do? I said, I want to become a lawyer. So it's not a coincidence. But the good thing is that you don't need to have a law degree to become a solicitor today. you can come from any other profession and become a solicitor. So it's more easier today. So if you want to be a solicitor, all you need to do is to follow this new route where they call solicitor qualifying exams. And I understand they are phasing out this traditional route by, is it 2032? They have to phase it out, and everyone will have to focus on solicitor qualifying exam 1 and 2. So it depends which route you want to take among the 4 routes. I know there's also select legal executive. I'm not really sure about that one, but you can convert from legal executive to a solicitor by following the rules of the Solicitor Regulatory Authority. So thank you very much.
Thank you both. The other panelist is to support us, so we won't trouble him with introducing himself. 2 things that I emphasized from the discussion we've had earlier. From Sapna, the need for resilience, and I think that's important. Perseverance and resilience are 2 words which struck me from what Sapna had to say. And from Alex, honesty, he said, and for me, I would say good standing and being careful. In that light, can I please urge people, young people, as you want to go into the law, think about what you post online, think about what you write online, and think about how you are going to keep yourself of good standing when it comes to choosing the profession that you want to choose. So those are the 3 points that one wants to raise from the discussion so far. I think that because we are 20 to 7, I'm going to leave the floor open now for Alec for questions, and I will say who will answer those questions once they come through. So I'll wait for the questions now.
Thank you very much, Ekaney. So we have this question in the chat box that the chairperson left. So is a law degree, someone studies law in Cameroon, has a law degree, maybe at the bachelor's level, maybe moves to the UK, is that degree acceptable, or maybe you have to do some other thing for your degree to become acceptable in the UK? And maybe not just Cameroon, how about other countries? How is it? So I'll throw that both to, in case of someone, both to someone who wants to be a barrister, and I think for the solicitor route, Alex already said that anyone can be a solicitor. So, but how about you want to be a barrister?
Alex.
Well, I did, in Cameroon, we had what we call, when we went to Ngwakele, their system is mixed with French. In the first year, all of us, whether you mix with the French and the English, we start going and then we start specialize. So I graduated in Cameroon with public law. So when I came to the UK, I was trying to ask some people who have been here what to do. So we used to have what they call common professional exam. It was about 8 compulsory subjects. You have constitutional law, administrative law, conveyancing, tort, and other things. They were compulsory. I understand they have changed it now. You have a different exam, which is, I presume, is still not different from what we used to have as common professional exams. Now you have postgraduate diploma in law. It's called convention course. So, but some countries in the Commonwealth, but you have to check, I cannot certify on this program. Some common law countries, they recognize their law degree. There are a lot of them, but we can always check on Solicitor Regulatory Authority, their website, or the UK government. So if they don't recognize it, it's not that we don't say they don't recognize it. What happens is if you don't have these major topics like constitutional law and administrative law, you have torts and other things. If you don't have those ones, like me, I did public law. So I have to go and do what they call now postgraduate diploma. But in countries like Nigeria, I'm sure they can just come directly. But whatever I'm saying on this platform, you should check, because as a lawyer, you always, or if you want to be a lawyer, you always have to do your due diligence. So some countries, they are permitted to come directly. But I came here, I have to do this common professional exam because I did public law. I'm not sure about English private law in Cameroon. Maybe they would have allowed them to go directly, unlike myself, because I did public law in Cameroon.
Thank you for that. I think, Sapna, to be able to qualify as a barrister here, you have to pass the bar vocational course. And that bar vocational course includes a number of subjects. Is that right?
Yes, that is true. And that's one route. Of course, you can also become a barrister either by transferring from becoming a solicitor
Yes.
or for unqualified lawyer. You might need to do a specific test to confirm to the Bar Standards Board, who regulate barristers in England and Wales, that you are a foreign qualified lawyer, but you can transfer through that route. But just picking up on what Nkumbe just said about the bar qualifying course, also known as the bar vocational course, that is a series of modules which, in order to complete, you have to have had a qualifying law degree. And a qualifying law degree in England and Wales comprises of certain core subjects, which you will learn if you do an undergraduate degree in law, or if you do the GDL, it's the graduate diploma in law, or equally, if you have a law degree in another jurisdiction, you might be able to qualify if you have passed certain modules before you then do the bar qualifying course. So just to break it down, first you need to have either an undergraduate law degree or graduate diploma in law, or an equivalent degree in law. Then you need to do the bar vocational course, and then you need to apply for pupillage in order to become a barrister, unless you're applying from becoming a foreign lawyer and then becoming a barrister, or from a solicitor to a barrister. So those are the three routes.
Can we have the next question, please?
Yes, please. Thank you very much, Jane. So this one says that for a young Cameroonian, let's say the person is in the UK and wants to practice law, what do you advise the person? Which route is better? Well, this is just the question. Is it the barrister route or the solicitor route? And I think that maybe through this question, we can all try to make a distinction between who a barrister is and who a solicitor is, what they do. I think that it's important.
Yes.
To really stress on that.
Because we're in the doctor's forum, if you think about going to see your GP and your GP referring you to a specialist, the GP would be the solicitor, the person who sees you first, who understands what the problem is. And then the specialist would be your barrister, who specializes especially in the problem that you have. So if you are a solicitor who practices in family law, you will generally sometimes go to court. But most of the time, if you have a particular case in Coventry, one in Liverpool, and one in London, you will go to typically my set of chambers. The clerks in the set of chambers would say who is available, and depending on the reputation and the experience and the difficulty or the complexity of the case, will allocate the case to a particular barrister. So that barrister would give advice, either face-to-face or remotely, and sometimes, or most of the time, would end up in court arguing the case on behalf of the client. So what I want to say to you is that if you think about it in terms of having a GP who is a generalist, who sees you, your solicitor, who gives you initial advice, and then specifically the specialist, who is the barrister who argues the case on your behalf. I think that's the crudest way of putting it, Sapna. Do you agree or don't you agree?
Role of being a barrister might be more suited for you. If you, however, prefer day-to-day offering legal advice to clients and working with clients on a day-to-day basis, then perhaps the role of being a solicitor is more suited for you. But which is why I would really recommend, if you are struggling to decide or understand the difference between the both, shadowing a solicitor and shadowing a barrister, and so seeing what their life is like on a daily basis and whether or not each one of those routes is more suited for you.
Next question, please.
Yes. Thank you very much, Jane. So, in a nutshell, for someone who aspires to practice law, like you said, it's best that they have an experience of both the solicitor role, the barrister role, to know what they really want. Is that what you're saying?
I think that is absolutely the case. I think if you're not sure about what you want, first of all, think about what your interests are. If you are interested in giving people advice privately without necessarily arguing their case publicly, the solicitor route may be the route for you. I say maybe because I think until and unless you go into firms of solicitors on work experience, see what they do on a daily basis, and see what barristers do on a daily basis, it's difficult to come to a conclusion one way or the other. So that's the advice I'd give everyone. Alex, it seems as though you wanted to say something.
Saying what Mr. Nkumbe is saying, it's right that all those things, like they will tell you, the profession of a solicitor and a barrister overlaps today, because sometimes if you want higher right, as he said, they are more experienced. We always give instruction to counsel, which means they give you real opinion because they specialize, most barrister. But today, we have what we call solicitor advocate. And sometimes you can pass an exam that gives you this right, you can go higher rights, because most solicitors, they usually go to lower court. You do advocacy, like somebody like myself. If I'm dealing with a matter of employment law or if it's immigration, and I always like to start it from zero until I take it to maybe the tribunal myself, because I understand the case very well. It doesn't mean the barristers are the best. When it comes to, because I've seen a lot of newspaper articles. I don't know if it's still the same. They used to say solicitor advocates, they don't do the job properly. I don't know. I haven't checked recently. But because solicitor, they are well trained and they specialize in certain field. So you go for them for certain things. But as my personal experience, I'll tell you, when it comes to lower court, if I have a case like immigration, I started from zero. I interview, take instructions, start it, or sometimes I want to go myself to court to represent those people, but I don't have higher rights. You need to write an exam to become solicitor advocate. And same to, I'm sure Mr. Nkumbe will tell you, barrister, you can have dual barrister, sometimes you can have direct access. Things are changing, they are not like before. So I could see, which is my prediction, at some time to come, there will be no difference between a solicitor and a barrister.
I think I would have retired then. Anyway, next question.
So this question concerns the compulsory courses for someone to obtain a diploma, a graduate diploma in law. So it's coming from Awamoma, and she would like to know that where can she study, or where can she get these 8 courses? Where can she study these 8 courses? Is it like, maybe is it online? I don't know, maybe some universities. So where actually can she find these 8 compulsory courses? That's what she would like to know.
Right. Sapna, can you help with that?
Yes, of course. So I think what you mean by that is the compulsory courses which make up a qualifying law degree. If you study an undergraduate law degree in England and Wales, then your law degree will automatically qualify. If you do what's known as the GDL, diploma in law, then you do those qualifying courses, but you just do it on an expedited basis. So a law degree normally takes about 3 to 4 years. GDL is an expedited course, which tends to take about 9 months to 1 year. Equally, what you can do is, if you qualify abroad, if you do a law degree abroad, you speak to the Bar Standards Board in this jurisdiction if you want to qualify in England and Wales, and your law degree from abroad might qualify. I can't say for sure because I'm not sure in which jurisdiction you're speaking about, but some law degrees that are outside of England and Wales do qualify as law degrees here. So you'll have to speak to the Bar Standards Board to gain specialist advice on whether or not your law degree qualifies. But if you're studying in this jurisdiction, either do a law degree or a GDL.
Thank you so much. Next question, please.
And please, just to emphasize, where can they actually, there's some universities that actually offer that GDL courses, or maybe, I don't know how they can go about that.
Want me to say, I should call you some name. There are a lot of universities, you can get it on Google. You have University of Law, BPP University, College of Law, Legal. There are lots of them. So I would advise anyone, you should Google and say you want to do what you want to do. They will give you a lot of university. And if you want to talk about which one is best, I'm sure I'm not well placed to say about those universities, but there are a lot of them.
Okay. Yeah, we have this one from Dillis. Dillis wants to know, as a student studying in the UK, studying law in the UK, I suppose, what A levels do you need in order to, okay, as a student in the UK and you want to practice, you want to become a barrister, what A levels maybe do you really need towards that?
I will say there are no specific A levels that you need. I think you need to do the A levels that you do and do as best as you can in the A levels that you do. Because when it comes to applying for pupillage, which is what Sapna talked about, which is the apprenticeship year, if I can call it that, we don't generally focus on what A levels you've undertaken. There are lots of people who have studied maths, physics, chemistry, and biology who are members of chambers in various sets of chambers. So I don't think that they need to worry about that. What they really need to concentrate on is trying to see what sort of interest they have, what sort of law they're interested in, and whether they're interested to become a solicitor or a barrister. And that comes out of work experience. In other words, seeing what barristers do, seeing what solicitors do, and deciding which of them that you want to pursue. Does that help?
Yeah, we have this other question.
Yes.
Someone who, the person wants to be a barrister, but is concerned about being self-employed. So I'll just read it as the person dropped it. Would you recommend the solicitor advocate route should someone want to be a barrister but is concerned about being self-employed?
Well, I'm going to ask Sapna to deal with that in a minute, but can I tell you that I was called to the bar in 1990, so I've never been employed, and it is what it is. But I've managed to keep body and soul together in that period. And Sapna will tell you the same, that depending on how, one, passionate you are about your job, two, passionate about giving the service that you have to give to people, three, being good at what you do and being resilient, that the rest of it will flow and the rest of it will follow. And when I started at the bar, young barristers did not have any payments from chambers. Nowadays, when you do your first 6 months, you're paid a little sum of money to help you with travel and living expenses. And in your second 6 months, you start taking your own cases, which means that some of them can earn quite reasonable money. But at the end of the day, you must decide what it is that you're passionate about. That's my view. If you're passionate about it and good at it, then I think the rest of it would follow. Sapna, do you want to answer that question, which is particularly relevant to you?
Yes, of course. I absolutely concur with everything that Nkumbe said, firstly. Secondly, if you are concerned about being self-employed, for example, for financial reasons, because you're worried about not having steady income, what I will say is if you do apply and have a role at a reputable set of chambers, then you are likely to receive quite a steady income because, as Nkumbe said, your diary will be quite busy, which means you will normally always be in court, and you tend to get paid when your clients pay their solicitors and the solicitors pay you. So you don't get paid at the end of each month. You might get paid every week, for example. There is still a steady income if you are self-employed, provided that the set of chambers that you're at receives a good steady stream of work. However, there are ways in which you can be a barrister but be employed. There are barristers who work at solicitors' firms. They're known as consultant barristers. There are barristers who are employed, for example, by the government or by the CPS, which is a Crown Prosecution Service. But those are specific types of law. So it really, I think the first question you'll have to ask yourself is, what kind of area of law do I want to practice in? If, for example, you want to practice in family law, then it's more likely than not that you'll want to become a barrister, because some solicitors who do family law do advocacy, so they do the solicitor advocate route, but in certain sets of areas of family law. So, for example, public children law, which is when children are removed from the state or the state is involved. If you want to do the full breadth of family law, like I do, then I would highly advise that you look at the barrister route, because that way you're able to employ your advocacy skills in family law. And if you apply, as I say, at a reputable set and you receive experience and the role at that reputable set, then you're likely to have steady stream of income.
All right, thank you very much. Can we have the next question, please?
Yeah, so this one concerns pupillage. They want to know, actually, is it challenging securing a pupillage currently, and is a pupillage also like a work experience? So those are the two questions. How challenging it is, and is it like a work experience?
Yes, well, I will. I was going to say I was going to let Sapna answer it, but I'll give an answer and then I'll let her just add to it. Is it challenging getting pupillages? The answer is yes. Speaking for myself, I made over 150 applications for pupillage, and I was offered 2. And I know from my days as head of chambers that we had typically 200 to 300 applications for pupillages, for 2 pupillages in chambers. So it is challenging. It is very rigorous. But is that the reason for saying people shouldn't do it? The answer must be no. I think that people of talent, people who are good, and people who have had exposure to what it is that barristers do will invariably secure pupillages. Very few of them do not, but in my view, as long as you're resilient and you're ready for it, then you should keep going, because I think I want to see as many people who are underrepresented in the career, in our career, being in the career, within our career. So I would encourage people very, very strongly, if they want to do it, to do it. So that's the first part of the question. Remind me what the second part of it is, please.
Is the pupillage like a work experience?
Well, pupillage is a bit like an apprenticeship. So the person who is your pupil master or pupil mistress teaches you the basics of the job. So you're really seeing a mechanic teaching his or her apprentice how to do it. So they will teach you how you open a case before a court, how you deal with challenges before a court, and so on and so on and so on. So it is really being like a very junior doctor, having a surgeon who is experienced teaching you how to operate. That's what it is. And so for the first 6 months of that pupillage, you're really there to learn, to see, to hear, to understand, to discern what it is like being a barrister. And then the second 6, you are doing your own cases. But one of the things that is so wonderful about chambers is that all members of chambers have this open door policy in which we're discussing our cases with each other and finding ways in which we can improve our cases and improve our practice. Of course, if you're against somebody in chambers, you're not going to be discussing the weaknesses of your case with them, but you will discuss it with other members of chambers who might say, well, no, Sapna, or no, Nkumbe, this is not the way we want you to do it. I think the way to do it is to do X, Y, and Z. Do you see? So you have this whole collegiate system in which we are supporting each other. So it may be that one night, Sapna has a difficult case. She might ring me up and say, Nkumbe, what do you think about that? And I might say X, Y, and Z, or vice versa. So that's what happens in the chamber system.
Jane, do you want to add
to that?
Yes, of course. As Nkumbe said, pupillage is competitive. I can't lie about that. It is competitive, and it is something, as I say, that you have to really persevere at if you want to pupillage. A lot of people, when they apply, don't get it in the first round. I say round, what I mean by that is the pupillage cycle, where you apply for pupillage, tends to come around every year. So it's an annual cycle that you apply for. A lot of people, when they apply, are not successful in their first round. But as I say, if you are interested in becoming a barrister, I really would advise that you persevere and apply again the next year, because the experience of being a barrister, I would say, is one, if you're interested in becoming one, it should not stop you just because pupillage is competitive. There are various ways in which you can improve your application. I've mentioned a couple of them earlier, which is work experience, extracurricular activities such as public speaking and debating. But every single time you apply for pupillage and you get interviews and you speak to barristers, you will naturally improve the way in which you come across. And if you are very interested in becoming a barrister, that will shine across in your applications, because what we're looking for is people who are passionate about the career and about the role and understand what it takes to be a barrister. So whilst it's competitive, it's hugely rewarding, and I'd advise you all to persevere if you're interested. But as I say, if you don't want to become a barrister, or if you are unsure, then really try work experience beforehand. Someone asked whether or not pupillage is work experience. There's a difference between work experience and actually getting the role of becoming a barrister. The work experience I was talking about is known as a mini pupillage. So that tends to be 1 day, 2 day, 1 week. That's the shadowing work experience. Pupillage is actually the year-long intensive course where you're training. It's a bit like the foundation year of training to become a doctor. And that's something that very few people obtain. But as I say, it's worth it.
Wow,
Thank
thank
you
you
so
very
much.
much. Yeah, so there is this other question about scholarships. Did any of you apply for any scholarships at the Inns of Court? And how do you recommend placing yourself in a good state in order to receive that?
Sapna, I'll go to you again.
Yes, of course. I did apply for a scholarship and I was successful in obtaining one. In order to be a barrister, you have to be a member of an inn. There are 4 inns in England and Wales. They are Lincoln's Inn, Gray's Inn, Inner Temple and Middle Temple, and you can only be a member of one. I am a member of Lincoln's Inn. I obtained a scholarship at Lincoln's Inn. You apply for a scholarship by completing a form, I believe it is, but the application process might have changed since I applied. And then you are invited to an interview where you are interviewed by 2 to 3 barristers from that inn, and they ask you questions about whether or not you're interested in becoming a barrister. To get a scholarship, I think what needs to shine across is 1, your commitment to the bar, which, as I say, you can show through work experience or public speaking, mini pupillages, and a real understanding of what being a barrister is about. And the second way in which you might be successful in obtaining a scholarship is good grades. So doing well at university, or if you have mitigating circumstances to explain why you were unsuccessful, explaining why. So those 2 aspects of a scholarship application, I think, would do you well in getting a scholarship.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we have Brittany, who just completed her first year of uni. I'm not sure what she's studying, but probably law. She's asking, how can she shadow a solicitor or a barrister? Does she need a qualification in order to shadow one? And how can she apply for that?
Brittany can think about what sort of work she's interested in. Crown courts, just to give an example, and magistrate courts are open places. People can go and see what it happens in those courts if they want to, if you're interested in criminal law. It's important that she looks online, sees the number of firms local to her, writes to them, telling them that she's interested in the work that they do. Would they mind her joining either physically or remotely to see the work? And most sets of chambers have a portal now in which people can apply for mini pupillages. And that is the route that I encourage everybody to take. Look at the sets of chambers. You can do that online. It's very, very straightforward. And tell them that you're interested in their work and you'd like to see what it is that they do. And it is only by experiencing those things, it seems to me, that you're going to be able to decide what it is that you want to do as a person. I think that is right, Sapna.
Yes, I entirely agree with that.
Okay.
Alex?
Yeah, please go on.
I'm saying, like, somebody like myself, before I qualify like a solicitor, I used to spend a lot of time, especially we had an employed barrister where I was working, and I enjoy, it was fun to me going to different criminal courts. You listen to story, you listen opening of the case up. So I used to enjoy going to different places. I've worked also with solicitors, dealing with immigration when I was not even, it was not a training contract. So from 2020, I started working with different solicitors. Sometimes it was not always smooth. Sometimes you work with some, you have your experience. Some of them, they will not want to pay you. I wasn't employed early 2020. So you have all this hurdle. But from the way I look at things now, it's a little bit different. They have made some changes. People can have work experience as paralegal, even abroad, not necessarily. These are positive changes for me, unlike when we used to wait for a training contract, which was very competitive.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next question.
Yes, so we have this student in high school. This student is trying to build a portfolio towards practicing law, and the student says he or she is engaged with things like public speaking, emceeing events. She's the person is in the drama club. So this student wants to know what other activities you will advise for them to build on as they look towards the legal profession.
I think volunteering and working within your community is a good thing. I find that even now, I've worked as the governor of a school. I mean, I'm not saying that this student is going to do that, but I think volunteering, I think that what barristers have to demonstrate is the ability to deal with people from all walks of life, all backgrounds, without fear or favor. That is really, really important. To be as open-minded as possible is really important. So any activity which shows how open-minded, how flexible, and how dexterous you are on your feet are things which I would advise people to do. I'm not saying that people should overburden themselves with all sorts of activities, but think about the things that improve you as a human being. Speaking as a family law person, I think that if you are an empathetic, kind, hardworking human being, it's a good basis to have if you want to practice in family law.
Okay, thank you very much. How are lawyers compensated? How are they rewarded? Do they earn like a salary, maybe from periodic pay slips, or they actually earn wages? So
well,
that's a question.
barristers, as I say, are mostly self-employed if you're in chambers. If you're a barrister practicing from a set of chambers, you work for yourself, so you're self-employed. And so depending on the cases that you're doing, you get paid per case. So, and you get paid per case depending on whether you're doing private law work or you're doing publicly funded work. So we don't have a salary. I don't have a pay slip. I get paid fees on the basis of what I do. In the same way that Sapna gets paid fees on the basis of what she does. I dare say Alex gets paid in a different way, depending on which clients come to him. He gets paid by the client. Alex, I think I'm right in saying that. And he may have a salary in that he has a business and that business pays him a salary. I do not know. But Alex, you probably can help us with that.
Yeah, definitely, I'm a consultant. I'm working with a law firm that is being regulated, and I'm self-employed too. But however, a firm can employ you, but to my experience, people prefer more consultant. And when you're a consultant, they pay you based on the cases that you do, and it's up to you. Like the government guidelines will tell you is there. If you Google it, UK government guidelines, how they pay you. Like if you're a solicitor, more than 8 years, senior solicitor, and have 17 years experience, they can say you earn approximately, is it £450 an hour that you charge. But however, taking into consideration the climate, you can always tell your client, this is what I'm supposed to earn, but I can reduce the fee for you. And as you said, solicitors, they can work in different companies, you can work in corporate firm, other things. There are solicitors that are employed and they pay them salary. There are solicitors that are self-employed. All depends.
Okay. We want to know more about solicitors who work for companies. You know, you have a big company, they employ, they have their private solicitors. For these companies, do they need some particular qualifications before they can take on such solicitors? And let's say if the solicitors go ahead to take like other work, can they, be struck off from their traditional company? And is that maybe a career option that some people can really take, like just to stick to a company?
I don't understand the question. If the question is, can solicitors who work for firms of solicitors take on other work? Or
No.
if you're saying that, I don't understand the question.
Let's say a company, let me say Sainsbury's or whatever company, then they have their own solicitor that if maybe they have an issue, their solicitor deals with. So
So that company is not a solicitor's firm. That company is
yes,
just any company. So
yes,
let's
yes,
say NAO.
yes, perfect. Yes, because we have people who have their private lawyers. So it's
So
kind of
NAO might have
that
an
sort of,
in-house solicitor.
yeah,
So they have an in-house lawyer who gives them advice.
yeah,
But depending on what it is that they're doing, depending on what the problem is, that in-house lawyer may not have the expertise to give them. And so what
yeah,
he or she may do is to say, I'm going to ask for some independent solicitor from another
okay,
firm who
yeah,
is expert at the problem to give me advice so I can give the advice to NAO. Do you follow?
yeah. No,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yes.
So anyway, so it's more of about, the competency than the terms of agreement between
Absolutely.
that solicitor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I may add, taking into consideration what Mr. Nkumbe said, if you are a solicitor, take note, you can be a solicitor while you're a practicing solicitor, and you can be a solicitor which you are not practicing, which just means a practicing solicitor have got a legal practice certificate, and you can be a non-solicitor. So you can go and work in a company that's not being regulated as a solicitor, but not a practicing solicitor. You can be a compliance officer insofar as they are not regulating what you're doing. You can work anywhere, because what I'm doing at the moment, they regulate us. If you're a solicitor, you work somewhere, you have to make sure what you're doing somewhere is if it's being regulated, you need a practicing certificate. But if you're a solicitor that you're not practicing, you can be a compliance officer somewhere insofar as they are not regulating what you're doing. Because there are some laws that they don't regulate it, and there are some that they regulate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Right. Next
Yes.
question.
So yeah, we have this other question. I will just read it as it is. That given the current legal market, would you recommend pursuing a traditional training contract which involves seat rotations or qualifying through 2 years of paralegal-based qualifying work experience? So it's like the person wants to know which is preferable between the two, the traditional training contract or qualifying through the paralegal work experience route.
I'm going to let Alex answer that.
Say, in order for you to use the traditional solicitor route, I'm sure you must have started studying or qualified to be that before, is it September 2021? If you cannot do it now, it's over. So only the people who started doing the courses, because they are facing it out, as I said, by, is it 2032. So you can't do it now. Only the people who started before September 2021. So I will tell you that there is no longer open to the public if you want to start doing it today.
Well, thank you. I think I'm going to tell everybody now that we are going to run for another 20 minutes. So if there are any questions that people feel strongly about, they should start sending them now, please.
Okay, we have this other one. Is it advisable to get mentorship before deciding which route to take? Like maybe you becoming a barrister or a solicitor?
I would suggest strongly, make up your mind what it is that you want to do first before engaging the services or the sacrifice of a mentor. I think that people who have mentored know that you need a lot of time, energy, and dedication. And there is no point in giving time and energy and dedication to someone who hasn't yet made up their minds about things. Of course, it's quite a good thing to chat to people. It's important that people get in touch to know what it is that people do. But my view would be start making the inroads or overtures towards people to try and make up your mind what it is that you're passionate about. And once you're passionate about something, then of course find a mentor. Sapna, what do you say? You might have a different view.
I definitely think that having a mentor is helpful. But as Nkumbe said, I think it's really important that first of all, you do the work experience or you investigate, do some research yourself to find out which area of law you want to specialize in, because a mentor will be most helpful to you if it's a mentor in the area of law that you want to go into. So, for example, if you're interested in family law, a mentor such as Nkumbe and I, anyone who's offering mentorship in family law would be more helpful to you than a commercial barrister, because we as family law barristers know what the family law barrister life is like. So we're more likely to be able to help you with more specialist advice. So I think doing some research yourself to start with would be helpful. If, however, you are just confused about where to start and you don't know which route is more suitable for you, there are mentors who are able to offer that help. But I think doing some research yourself to start with would stand you in good stead to knowing which kind of mentor is best helpful for you.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
Yeah, so we know there are so many chambers out there, and many of them deal with similar things. So, what advice will you give for someone who wants to choose a chamber, maybe to lead their case? What advice?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
What advice will you give someone who wants to choose the chambers? Maybe the person has a.
It depends on it depends on which area of the law people are interested in. You see, if you are interested in family law, I think you will find that in various parts of the country, there are leading sets in various parts of the country. Yes. So if you are in London, you will find that there are a number of sets that keep recurring, not just in cases, but the barristers keep recurring in cases, which shows their level of excellence. So I think it's with time you get to pick up and know which teams are pretty good teams. You see, it's a bit like football or hospitals. Although you have league tables for hospitals, generally the public knows that there's some hospitals that people tend to avoid. You know, it's a bit like barristers' chambers as well. There's some chambers that people tend to avoid, and some chambers that got very, very good reputations. So it takes a bit of time and research to be able to do that. And for the most part, it's something that comes almost organically. Sapna, unless I'm completely out of touch about this. Do you agree?
No, I completely agree. And I think doing mini pupillages or work experience at different chambers will help you see whether or not the culture at that particular set of chambers is right for you.
Okay.
Right.
Is it possible to be a solicitor, a barrister, just part-time? I'll double the question, and someone wants to know if maybe you can be a barrister, solicitor, and still be a civil servant, or you have to drop one.
Barristers are civil servants, solicitors are civil servants. If you're employed, they employ them. And to add, I just wanted to add about mentorship. To me, it's very important that you understand that just work experience or paralegal is good enough, because I used to follow barristers. I'm talking more than 20 years ago. I would go to court, family matters. During the break, some of our clients, they will come and be talking their personal problem. That one started driving me away from family matter, because they'll come and be telling issue. So sometimes you just apply, it doesn't matter what experience, and you look what they are doing, whether it's a criminal law firm, whether it's whatever. They always, work experience doesn't mean it could be 2 weeks, it could be 1 month, it could be 2 months. So sometimes it's a choice that you need to make by yourself.
Okay, thank you. We have a few more, so let's try to wrap up. So we have Brittany again, and I think she says she wants to practice corporate law as a barrister, and she's seeking advice which route she should take towards achieving that.
If she's interested in corporate law, there are lots of sets in London and in the country specializing in corporate law. She should try and get a mini pupillage in one of those sets. She should try and identify a mentor or someone who can support her. She should go and see what it is that they do to see whether it is what she actually wants to do. And it seems to me she should try as much as possible to contact as many of them as possible Because it is only by seeing what people do on a daily basis that you're going to decide, yes, I want to be part of this, or I don't want to be part of it. And of course, she needs to work very hard. I'm sure she's very, very brilliant, but she needs to work very hard. She needs to be prepared for the hard work of the commercial bar.
Okay. So this other one, I'll just read it as it is. I applied to the Bar Standards Board. The application was granted upon passing a couple of courses. They advise I can register now with any in of court. What will you advise? Register first before taking the bar transfer test, or apply to the Inns of Court while waiting to be successful with the bar transfer test?
My instinct, Sapna, subject to what you say, is to be a member of an inn as soon as you can, because you start being exposed to the facilities of the inn, including interactions with other barristers who are qualified, even before you become qualified. At the time when I did my bar course here, it was a requirement not only that you were a member of an inn, but that you had been to 12 dinners. I don't know what the practice is now, but that was to give you as much exposure to the profession as possible. So my advice would be, if you can get into inn, get in and start using the facilities, and you will find people who are going to be very, very helpful to you there, including the educational officers in the inn, who are very, very helpful. Sapna.
Yes, absolutely, I'd agree. And I mean, we'd be talking about mentors. A way in which you can get a mentor is if you join an inn and speak to the education team there, because every inn has a mentorship scheme which runs. So you might be able to obtain a mentor or make network with other barristers or those who, similarly to you, are about to want to take the bar transfer test by joining in. So I'd agree with what Nkumbe said.
Wow, thank you very much. So we have this qualified lawyer from Cameroon who is currently based in the UK. I am yet to apply to the Bar Standards Board. Can I, in the meantime, apply to any Inn of Court while waiting to apply to the Bar Standards Board? What do you advise? I
don't see any reason why they shouldn't, actually, because there are lots of foreign students who are members of the inn. My 80-year-old mother is a member of an inn, but she's not British. She's Cameroonian. Mm-hmm. So it is possible.
Okay. So what do you wish to tell what do you wish someone had told you in your early career
I wish they had told me that the hours were going to be quite long, and that I would still feel nervous and uncertain about going to court. But all of those things are all the tools of the trade. I wish someone had told me that I would still be nervous every single time I stepped into a court.
How about the others?
So far, I can only pick and copy what Mr. Nkumbe said, that you're always nervous because when you stand in front of a judge, especially when it comes to court, those people, they are very intelligent. They know everything. If you go and blunder in front of them, they can report you. So when you're going, especially for advocacy, make sure you know what you're saying, because you are representing the client. And in solicitor professional conduct, the first thing is what? The best interest of the client. You cannot take somebody's money and go and stand in front of a judge and be talking nonsense. So it's not easy. But however, I'm pleased. I'm in the right profession and I'm happy.
Okay.
Sapna.
I'm quite early on in my career because I only qualified a short while ago. But what I would say is something that I have learned from others who are more senior to me is imposter syndrome is real, and a lot of people experience imposter syndrome, and you're not alone if you experience imposter syndrome. So I would have wished someone had told me that when I was applying, that it's quite normal to feel like that.
Okay.
To feel that you don't really belong here. This is not really happening. It is not me. Why am I here? They know more than I do. I mean, it's something which happens every single day. I wish someone had told me that, but it's fine. It's absolutely
Okay.
fine to feel that way.
Yeah. Can or must a court admin be a qualified barrister or solicitor? Who administers the law court?
Sorry,
Yeah.
who administers it?
Civil servant.
Who administers the law court?
It is
Civil
a
servant.
magistrate's court and tribunal service who are civil servants. And then the people who sit as judges are generally solicitors or barristers. And that's it.
Okay, and this last question.
Who have undergone a competition and have been successful in a competition. Because before you become a judge, you have to have done a competition. And that competition in French is un concours. And everybody has to pass the concours to be able to do it.
The last question, what are you looking for in a mentee?
Someone who is passionate about their job and passionate about the law.
Okay. I think we've exhausted the questions we have, except someone from the audience has something that they want to bring up.
Well, we're going to take two more questions, if there are any more questions from the audience, and then I will conclude the discussion. Yes, yes. I was a Deputy High Court judge for 5 years. That is after a competition, and I sat in the Royal Court of Justice in London. I sat in family law cases, and the contract was to sit for 30 days a year, at least. I found it extremely illuminating in the sense that judges have got to be very, very patient. I also found it to be challenging because it was a different sort of approach to cases, namely identifying the most important points in each case and trying to summarize a vast amount of data and in a focused way. So the one thing that I found or learned from that is to ensure that discussions are as targeted as possible. I just don't enjoy waffle. And I learned that from my practice as a Deputy High Court judge. So it is very different, and it is improved. I think it is improved my practice as a barrister because I want to identify the points that are going to help a judge in coming to a conclusion rather than the points which the client may think are going to help a judge to a conclusion. So that's the answer. I also noticed that my name is wrongly spelled on this thing. Yeah. Well, there we are. Anyway, can I conclude by thanking the organizers of this discussion? We are incredibly privileged to have been invited and asked to speak. I'm particularly grateful to Sapna, who I know has got a very, very busy practice, to have been dumped, as it were, into this hugely difficult task. And if I may say so, she's done it with such brilliance and ease. Can I also thank Alex, because I know that Alex, it takes time to be able to do these things, and you've done that brilliantly as well. I won't forget my moderator who has asked the questions with such skill and gentleness, and of course to Alhaji, who has forced our hands in all of these things and made us behave appropriately. But I will leave by just sending you my thanks and telling you that my virtual door is open. Anybody who wants any further advice from me, I would be more than privileged to give them that advice. Apart from that, it is to say adieu and until we meet again.